So today we're talking DIY custom home series. And the real question is, can you build your own custom home or should you hire a professional? Let's get to it. So I know that you've all seen the DIY videos out there. And there's even some videos where it shows people building cabins or maybe having some sort of larger scale, value add remodel. And I'm here to tell you that if you're building a custom home, you have to hire a professional, especially if you're looking to build a one-off luxury custom home for you to reside in for the next 30 years. And here's why. So in short, there's 4 major components of building a luxury custom home. The first is going to be the design and pre-construction. The second is going to be the construction management of the overall home that's being built. The third is obviously going to be the warranties and making sure that you've hired actual professionals that are going to stand behind their work. And the fourth, which a lot of times is overlooked, is the project management of all these things. Now, what I will say is that what's super exciting for most people is the design phase. And to be honest, it's easy enough to be able to find a great architect, a great interior design team to be able to design your amazing custom home for you. And that is actually what most people would consider the fun part. But then when it comes to actually selecting a builder or doing it yourself is where things start to get much more complicated. And here's the reason why. The building space is more complex than it's ever been. With the lack of professional trades that are entering into the field, it's hard to be able to actually utilize some of the best trades to build your custom home if you go it alone. The second piece is going to be the project management. You don't know what you don't know. And because of some of the complexities of the overall designs that are being associated in a lot of custom homes these days, it's best to hire a professional that understands some of the challenges that are going to be coming your way in the form of engineering, documents versus actual constructability of the home. As a homeowner, since you don't know what you don't know, you probably don't have the right vocabulary, and it's hard to be able to communicate to the various trades that you've hired to be able to get the work done. In addition to that, because you're going solo, it's very difficult to hire each individual trade when they know that the complexities of a build is going to be even more difficult dealing directly with a client than it is to deal with a company such as a general contracting company that focuses on construction day in and day out, that could be able to easily have the terminology, the lingo, and the overall knowledge that allows them to be able to get to the end result as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Typically, trades that work with builders aren't going to be accessible to the general public, which makes it even more difficult because instead of getting A or B crews on your job site, you're going to be dealing with the C and D crews, and you're going to be dealing with most of the headaches that revolve around the construction industry. I've said it before, if you work with the top 10% of anyone in the industry, you're in good hands. But as soon as you dip below that, you're going to start running into issues with the systematic approach that they have to be able to complete the deliverables that are necessary for custom home building. As a builder myself, we have had scenarios where we have a trade partner on our site that we don't feel like is meeting the necessary requirements that it takes to be able to complete that scope of work, whether that be concrete, framing, or any other part of construction. It's very important to be able to have a tight-knit relationship with each one of these trade partners, which is almost impossible to do on your own. Most of the time, you don't know exactly who you're hiring, whether they've been vetted, or whether they're even skilled enough to be able to complete the scope of work that's necessary for your project. I've seen it over and over again where the client/subcontractors communication has completely deteriorated. They can't get that person on site. Usually there's a fair amount of money that's associated with these scenarios, and they go to the ROC to try to fix things, which is a slow and tedious process that really doesn't allow them to be able to get the end result that they want, which is an efficient build that allows them to be able to quickly move into their new residence. So I'm not saying that a DIY doesn't take its place in construction. The reality is I've seen a lot of videos where someone's building a custom cabin or residence, but typically that person has a fair amount of construction knowledge. They've either built houses before or they're really hands-on and have that tradesman type attitude that allows them to be able to push through to completion. But typically these projects, they're handling a lot of the workload themselves. They're taking a lot longer time that most of our clients, which quite simply put, most of our clients don't have the capacity to be able to take on a project like this that takes consistent oversight day in and day out with not only scheduling and project management, but also with quality control and making sure that everything is built appropriately to code. and preferably above code standards. While I will say that there's many clients that know exactly what they want, it's better to have an advocate that you're working with in the form of a general contractor that will allow you to be able to get the best end result and get all the items that you need, whether that be from an energy efficiency perspective or from the perspective of a fit and finish and material selections perspective. A good general contractor will allow you to be able to avoid many of the pitfalls that often occur, which are over budget, over time frames, and under quality or underperforming contractors and trade partners that plague our industry. So now that we've discussed that DIY doesn't have much of a space in the custom home world, let's talk about some of the things that we feel like are appropriate for those that want to take on some of the aspects of construction. So the first items that I'm going to mention are some of the exterior features of the home. Now, there's a fair amount of builders that actually don't take care of exterior scope of work, even though it's well within the scope of residential general contracting. But if you want to take on the pool build and some of the exterior features like an outdoor barbecue, outdoor kitchen, and possibly even the landscaping and hardscape in the home, this is actually something that we see quite often in the build world. As residential builders, there's plenty of people that don't want to take on that scope and feel like it's more appropriate for the homeowner to be able to take care of these pieces on their own and hire their own professionals for these services. And while I highly recommend hiring some of those landscape professionals, the reality is that this is something that can traditionally be done by a homeowner if they're willing to put in some of the labor and sweat equity that's heavily involved with this type of work. Now, when I mention exterior features of the home, such as a pool, you're obviously going to want to hire a pool contractor, but it's definitely something that you might be taking on that scope outside of your general contracting agreement. And that's quite all right as long as that's decided up front and provides an additional benefit to the homeowner, and they have the time to be able to take on the project management that's associated with those key pieces of the overall project coming together. Some of the interior things that I could think about that often get taken care of after the homeowner's moved in would be taking care of window coverings, as long as they're not integrated into the smart home, as well as some additional smart home components such as installing Ring doorbells, and some of the interior finishes such as wallpaper coverings and other coverings that are located throughout the house, painting specific colors for accent rooms to be able to give the character that you want within each space of your home. Now, as we move on to some of the other DIY that I think are appropriate for individual homeowners to handle, I would definitely say that to some capacity, remodels can fall into this category, dependent on how extensive they are. There's plenty of videos out there showing people remodeling bathrooms and being able to take care of some minor finishes and fixtures throughout the home. And to be honest, it's a very rewarding process being able to create something with your own two hands. But as soon as you start to think about things that are structural, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC that has to be moved to new locations throughout the home, in my opinion, this is where the lines get blurred when it comes to someone that's trying to renovate on a budget by themselves versus hiring a GC to make sure that everything's done appropriately and that you won't find any issues. As the project scope increases to be able to include some of these major system relocations, and as soon as, in my opinion, an architect and engineers are involved, it's time to hire a general contractor. We appreciate you following this channel. We hope that you find this video helpful. But more importantly, if you disagree with me and you've actually built your own custom home, I'd love to hear the success stories below to tell me why I'm wrong, that building a custom home isn't a DIY type of project that you want to take on. As always, we hope that you've enjoyed following our channel. Subscribe below and have a great day.